Let's find the truth in the darkness. Tokyo, night. Neon-lit streets, people in a hurry, taxis moving without pause. But one thing is always lurking in the shadows. An old, dangerous, and powerful organization that can erase someone's life with a mere gesture. A group whose name, when you hear it, makes your heart stop for a moment. Yakuza, where the light has no way, the darkness tells everything. In this video, we're diving into the terrifying world of the Yakuza. An organization born from masterless samurais, grew in underground gambling halls, and now stands as one of the most powerful mafias in the world. But this is just the surface. Behind this black veil, something is hidden that the world doesn't want you to see. The Yakuza is not just a criminal gang. It's a culture, an ideology, and a terrifying system where betrayal is repaid with blood. In this video, we'll explore the dark history, the terrifying rules, and the ruthless crimes of the Yakuza. So fasten your seatbelt, because this is a journey into the heart of darkness. Welcome to Crime Darkroom, where the darkness becomes illuminated. Every crime has a root, and if you want to understand the Yakuza, you must go back to the past. A time when samurais still had their own code, but a ruthless and rebellious group shaped the future of crime and corruption. In the 17th century, Japan was filled with masterless samurais known as ronin. They had survived the civil wars, but now, without a lord and a livelihood, they were drawn toward crime. Some of them turned to gambling, theft, and extortion, forming small groups. These groups were the first version of the Yakuza. But this was just the beginning, because the Yakuza slowly began to take shape as a real organization. They weren't just a bunch of criminals, they were a secret army. 19th century. The Yakuza presented themselves as protectors of the people, guarding local markets against other criminals. But in reality, they were extorting them. Early 20th century. They entered the drug trade, gambling, and the sex industry. World War II. The Japanese government uses the Yakuza to suppress communists, and this organization gains more power. The Yakuza had learned one thing well: survival. They adapted to chaos, took bribes from politicians, and used wars to their advantage. But there was still something left that would transform them from a street gang into a real empire. 1950s. The Yakuza became one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the world. They adopted a formal mafia structure, just like the Cosa Nostra in Italy. Complete control over casinos, nightclubs, and Japan's black market. The Yakuza was no longer just a street gang. They had control over police chiefs, politicians, and even major corporations. But this was just the surface, because to enter the world of the Yakuza, they had created their own laws that, if broken, had one penalty: death. The Yakuza started with masterless samurais, but gradually transformed into a terrifying organization. They had connections with politicians and the police, but they also had their own set of rules. To enter this world, one thing was required: a commitment signed in blood. Crime always has a story to tell, but the story of the Yakuza is just beginning. Now it's time to enter the darkest part of the tale: the brutal rules and deadly punishments of the Yakuza. Crime always has a story to tell, but in the world of the Yakuza, these stories never have a happy ending. In this gang, if you make one mistake, it might be your last. The Yakuza's rules show no mercy. Betrayal, failure, and even disrespect come at a heavy price. If a member of the Yakuza breaks the law, there's one way to escape death, but at a steep price. One of the most terrifying laws of the Yakuza is yubitsume, which means cutting off a part of the little finger as punishment. Why do they do this? Because the little finger plays a crucial role in the art of swordsmanship for the samurai. Someone who loses this finger becomes weaker in combat, meaning they'll need the gang even more to survive. In the world of the Yakuza, apologizing isn't enough to make up for a mistake. Here, mistakes are cleansed with blood. If a Yakuza member betrays or harms their group, the only way out may be suicide. The method of death? Poison. Quick and painless seppuku, stabbing the stomach. Brutal but honorable execution by gang members. If you try to escape, someone will come after you, and that will be your last meeting. The Yakuza says betrayal has only one way, and that's death. Joining the Yakuza is not a simple decision. Once you're in, there's no turning back. The Yakuza initiation ceremony. The group boss gives the new member a bowl of sake, rice wine, a symbol of brotherhood. The new member respectfully drinks from the bowl, signifying that they have dedicated their life to the Yakuza. From this moment on, the member is forever committed to the organization. The Yakuza is not just a gang, it's a family, but a family that, if you betray them, will hold a funeral for you. The Yakuza follow a set of specific rules, something like Bushido, the samurai code, but with one big difference. The main rules: Be loyal to the boss, even if it means sacrificing your life. Respect the Yakuza, even if it means shedding blood for that respect. Treat ordinary people well, but destroy your enemies. But the actions that will get you executed. Collaborate with the police, disobey the boss, sell money or weapons to a rival group, any of these three would get you killed. In the world of the Yakuza, life is a simple transaction. Either obey or be killed. If you think the Yakuza were just a bunch of street criminals, you're gravely mistaken. Because unlike other mafia groups, they found a way not only to live in the shadows, but to infiltrate politics, the economy, and even the police forces. This is where crime transforms into a real empire. You might not believe it, but the Japanese government and the Yakuza have always had a strange and complex relationship. Unlike other mafias that avoid the government, the Yakuza has always managed to stay close to politicians in some way. It might seem strange to you, but there are real-life examples of this. After World War II, the government used the Yakuza to suppress the communists. Many Japanese politicians would take money from the Yakuza to fund their election campaigns. In the 1980s, some of the largest construction projects in Japan were funded by the Yakuza. In many countries, the government fights against the Mafia, but in Japan, sometimes the two make a quiet deal. The law is for ordinary people, but for those in power, there's always a way out. One of the strangest things about the Yakuza is that, unlike other groups, they've always been somewhat legal. They had official offices, business cards, and even published their own newspapers. But how did the police tolerate this situation? The answer is simple: balance. By this means, sometimes the Yakuza would help the police control other criminals. Instead of street wars, they preferred to pay under the table and avoid causing trouble. The police, instead of an endless war, preferred to maintain a hidden order. In Japan, the war between the Mafia and the police was never always black and white. Sometimes they had a common enemy and an unwritten agreement. The Yakuza aren't just a street gang, they have legitimate businesses too. And they launder their money by doing so through investing in real estate, starting construction companies, entering the entertainment and film industries, managing secret gambling dens and online casinos. In the 1980s, the Yakuza infiltrated many major Japanese corporations. Even some of Japan's largest banks unknowingly laundered Yakuza money. The Yakuza doesn't just fight with fists and knives. Sometimes their main weapons are a check, a legal signature, and a bank account full of money. The Yakuza was once an unstoppable empire, but the world has changed. Laws have tightened, technology watches everything, and now one crucial question remains. Does the Yakuza still hold its old power, or is this shadowy beast slowly fading away? New laws have been enacted in Japan, and in a way, the government is at war with the Yakuza. In recent years, the Japanese government decided to no longer tolerate the Yakuza. The strict new laws have made life harder than ever for Yakuza members. The most important anti-Yakuza laws are these. In 1992, a law was passed that banned any cooperation between companies and banks with the Yakuza. In recent years, the Japanese police have started to shut down the Yakuza's official offices and close their financial sources. Once, the Yakuza had offices and business cards, but now the government wants to erase all traces of them from the face of the earth. But has it succeeded? And during this time, rival groups began turning against each other as well. The breakaway members formed a new group called Kobe Yamaguchi, and the streets of Japan became filled with conflict. Since then, internal conflicts have weakened the Yakuza, causing them to lose their power. With the advancement of technology and the modern era, life for the Yakuza has become harder than ever. It's no longer like before, where you could operate in the shadows because surveillance cameras are everywhere. The police can now more easily trace money laundering and criminals by analyzing digital data. Even ordinary people with just a mobile phone can record and report Yakuza activities. The Yakuza always chose shadows as their hideouts, but now that technology has illuminated everywhere, do they still have a place to hide? Some say the Yakuza is finished, but the truth is they still exist, though the way they operate has changed. They have adapted to the situation themselves. Now, they operate more in financial markets and legal investments. Instead of street fights, they now work in the world of the internet and hidden businesses. And unbelievably, instead of physical attacks, they now use lawyers and laws to advance their operations. Crime never truly disappears. It just takes a different form. Maybe the Yakuza has vanished from the streets, but do you think it's not still breathing in the shadows of the business world and the internet? The story of the Yakuza is not just an old legend. While headlines may claim that this criminal empire has come to an end, darkness always finds a way to survive. We've seen the dark past of the Yakuza, examined its fall and transformation. But now one important question remains. Does the Yakuza have a future? Or is it just a story slowly fading into history? We can outline 3 possible scenarios for the future of the Yakuza. Scenario 1. The Yakuza rises again. Some believe that the Yakuza still holds influence and is just waiting for the right moment to regain its power. In times of crisis, mafia groups often grow stronger. Will the Yakuza re-emerge in the near future? With economic changes and potential crises, people in Japan might once again turn to these underground organizations for support. If history has taught us anything, it's that when systems weaken, darkness always finds an opportunity to return. Scenario 2. The Yakuza is completely destroyed. The police and government of Japan enforce stricter laws every year. The Yakuza groups no longer have the same power and are not attracting new members. With the rise of cybercrime and new technologies, the old methods of the Mafia are slowly fading away. Maybe one day the name Yakuza will only be seen in history books, a bygone legend that no longer holds any truth. Scenario 3. Transformation and entry into a new world. One of the realities of the criminal world is that crime never disappears. It only transforms. The Yakuza may shift from the streets to the internet and hidden financial markets. Money laundering, cryptocurrencies, cybercrimes. Maybe the future of the Yakuza won't be like the past, but it could still be alive. When the streets are no longer safe, criminals migrate to the digital world. Maybe the future of the Yakuza won't be in dark alleys, but in the internet. The end, does darkness really ever disappear? Whichever scenario proves to be true, one thing is clear. Crime never completely disappears, it just changes its form. Welcome to Crime Darkroom, where the darkness becomes illuminated.